On September 1, 2026, John Turnus will walk into the CEO's office and take control of a company hovering near a $4 trillion valuation. Silicon Valley mythology credits growth to visionary inventors, but Tim Cook is an operations manager. Early in his career, he treated electronics inventory like a grocer treats yogurt, a perishable item that loses value every day it sits on a warehouse shelf. When Apple tried to build a brand new hardware category, the result was the Vision Grow. Launched at $3,500, it sold roughly 600,000 units before production was slashed and the hardware team broken up. Apple's recent software efforts hit similar roadblocks. Highly publicized artificial intelligence features were delayed repeatedly, triggering a $250 million class action lawsuit. Meanwhile, the $13 billion Apple spent on AI infrastructure in 2025 is dwarfed by the spending at Microsoft and Meta. If Tim Cook spent the last 15 years struggling to invent the next big thing, how did he build the most valuable financial machine in corporate history? He didn't need a new product. He took the device Steve Jobs gave him and scaled its physical manufacturing to a global extreme. Between 2016 and 2021, Apple poured $275 billion into its Chinese suppliers. That ecosystem now demands the labor of roughly 3 million people. At peak demand, Foxconn's factory complex in Zhengzhou pushes 500,000 finished iPhones out the door in a single day. Centralizing production in one country created a severe geopolitical vulnerability. Apple is now moving 25% of its assembly to India and shifting parts of its wearables production to Vietnam. By turning a popular gadget into a private, multinational industrial nation, Cook laid the physical foundation for Apple's astronomical wealth. That relentless global manufacturing pipeline eventually placed an unprecedented 2.5 billion active devices directly into the hands of users worldwide. Every one of those screens acts as a toll booth. Once a user is in the ecosystem, they pay App Store fees, subscribe to iCloud and Apple Music, and drive the search default payments Apple collects from Google. This bar chart compares Apple's software services revenue against the total annual revenue of the Walt Disney Company. Delivering digital services has 75% gross margins, generating over $100 billion a year. While the public sees a hardware manufacturer, this invisible, high-margin software toll booth generates more annual profit than the total revenue of most Fortune 500 companies. This graph shows Apple's cash on hand, which peaked near $280 billion in 2017. The iPhone was throwing off more cash than Apple could practically spend on research and development. Instead of letting that cash sit idle, Cook set a target to become net cash neutral. He drained the bank account directly into the pockets of investors, eventually returning over $1 trillion in dividends and buybacks. When a company repurchases its own stock, the total number of existing shares shrinks. Cook eliminated 40% of Apple's outstanding shares. Even if Apple's net income had stayed flat, every remaining share would mathematically represent a much larger slice of the company. This sustained effort to shrink the company's share count, rather than a breakthrough product, defined the Cook era and pushed Apple's valuation to $4 trillion. The second act of a great technology company doesn't require lightning to strike twice. It requires operations, distribution, and capital allocation executed with relentless discipline. Steve Jobs made the iPhone. Tim Cook did the extraordinarily hard work of making the iPhone make money. When John Turnus takes over, he inherits an aging gold mine and a half-built map to the next one. The supply chain that took 30 years to build cannot easily be replicated for whatever device comes next. Tim Cook printed $1 trillion,